episode 18, The Feeling of Nothingness. In this episode, we'll be discussing experiencing minimal emotion when everything feels like a discipline, dreadful nights and the mind games associated with those dreadful nights, and most importantly, combating the feeling and allowing God to shape you during this time of feeling nothingness. Now, this episode may start off feeling a little dark and I don't want to say the word depressing, but just a little dark. And the only reason I want to start off this way is because I want you guys to understand that what I'm saying is not just being pulled out of where. It's genuinely like I live this, I understand it, I can relate, and the combating the feeling and being shaped part of it, allowing God to shape you through it. It is extremely applicable in my own life and something I'm working on and trying to remind myself of every single day. So please don't think anything in this episode is just something that I'm getting from TikTok trends or from anything else I've seen out in the world. It's genuinely my own personal experience, and I know a lot of you will be able to relate as well. So hopefully we can help each other out and better each other through this and relating in such a way. So beginning with experiencing minimal emotion. It may feel as if from the moment you open your eyes each morning to trying to shut them at night, you feel as if every single moment in between is just one flat line, just blah emotion. And that can be very repetitive, and the longer that goes on, the more dreadful it becomes, and the more just redundant every day may feel. And it compounds, and with time, it's like how much longer, or it could turn into you trying to pick up new habits that are not the healthiest or best of habits that now become a new part of your identity because you were just so desperate to get out of the one flat line of emotion each and every day. And I totally get it. I understand where you're coming from. I don't agree with turning to negative things in those times, but I understand where you're coming from and why you just want to get out of that, because it is a brutal chain of days, and it's brutal. It's just brutal, to say the least. And then on the other hand, some days you take yourself for a wild ride of emotion that seems to only linger around just how angry or frustrated you will be on the given day, not how happy or sad. It's just usually an influx of anger at times, or maybe it's just minimal anger. But the point being here with anger and frustration or anything of those similar sorts is that it usually just fluctuates around how upset, how frustrated, how angry you're going to be on some given days. Not even so much like, okay, can I actually enjoy something, because you have minimal joy in your day. And I totally get that. That's the next thing I want to talk about here. So I think with those two alone, I probably could relate to most of you. And then moving into everything feeling like a discipline. And this is the first line I hear. I have, because I have all my notes and everything laid out prior to these episodes. And this one is one I've repeated to myself, to my mother, who I, very good relationship with. So we talk about this all the time. And it's each waking hour of the day feels like a discipline. And that one is probably the most, if that could describe my circumstances for the past year or so maybe, that is by far the most accurate statement. And I don't say these things as if I'm a victim of anything or as if I want sympathy, because every single person at one point or another is going to live through this if they haven't already, and probably will again. But it feels like there's not many enjoyable parts to your day. Whereas if it's getting up for work, even sometimes exercising can feel like a discipline. Obviously, work itself would feel like a discipline, depending on what you do. Not always the case for myself. It's half and half. But I do enjoy what I do. Then outside of that, maybe it's not too much social interaction, or maybe it's not enough hobbies or activities or things that you're passionate about. Point being, every waking hour of the day, for the most part, it feels like it's just all a discipline. Like you're literally just doing what needs to get done, and there's not much to enjoy in that. But I promise you, as I mentioned in the beginning, where there's going to be good at the end of this, like the final subtopic here to wrap it all up and how to kind of combat this, it's not going to be like that forever. And there's actually a lot of beauty in this right now. And for those of you who are seeing this and not seeing the beauty in it, just bear with me. Stay with me to the end here, and you're going to see. Because I'm still living in a lot of it with kind of feeling it's all discipline and it's all a mental mind. It's a mind game every single day, like it is for everybody else. But there's a good way to look at it. I promise you, there's a good way to look at it. Just bear with me here. But to continue where I left off with everything feeling like a discipline, it's start to notice here, as I mentioned, on top of this, everyday simple tasks can start to feel burdensome, and then ultimately just lead us down this road of laziness that then compounds into something even much worse down the road if you allow it to take precedence over you. I lived like that. How long ago now? Not even. I mean, probably 8 or 9 months ago. I was in a phase like that, and it just consumes you. I mean, it absolutely consumes you if you let it. And I mean, the one thing you can take away out of that, if there's one thing that's really important from a phase like that, where it's this laziness. Maybe if you don't have a job, I know what that feels like too. You could just feel like you don't have much purpose. Like you're getting up every day, you don't really know what to do with the day. It's just every day is just a matter of, okay, how can I just get tonight? How can I just get through this day to get it over with? Um, it's just a brutal roller coaster every single day, just trying to get through it with not much going on. And then for some of you that are ambitious people, it's tough because it's like, I have these goals, I have these dreams, but I don't even have a job yet. Like I'm so far behind reality. You're really not. Because for me, it really took nothing to change my whole life, to turn my whole life around. Which I can explain another time. But it's just when you allow it to start, as I've mentioned countless times, it's when it consumes you. You gotta just take it and really just crush that feeling of just wanting to be lazy for everyday tasks. I know it sounds silly to say, like I'm just throwing out there like the obvious, but when little things, like really, really small everyday things, start to feel like just such, like you're just being weighed down by life, and now it's just a matter of, I don't feel like doing this again, or how much longer of this. You gotta really, really just take it on the chin, if that makes sense. Like just take life on the chin for the simple things. Just don't lose sight of that. Don't lose sight of the simple things, like making your bed when you wake up each morning. Just cleaning the dishes after you eat, not just letting it stack up there to the ceiling. Um, you know, just staying on top of the little things like that. Because as soon as, I know I sound like a broken record, but it's so relatable. Like it was the smallest things for me that would just become like, oh my goodness, like I don't feel like doing this either. And then you're like, wow, I'm really a lazy son of a gun. Like I'm really that lazy. That relies upon the people around me to do the simplest of things for me because my circumstances aren't the best. I mean, just because yours aren't the best doesn't mean you need to make everybody else's a burden. But point being, stay on top of the simple things. Even if they feel more burdensome, I'm telling you, keep at it. Because as soon as you let yourself slip for a second, it's tough to get back. It really is. And then the next thing I want to jump into here, this is for everybody. I know it's literally relatable to everybody who made it this far. That is dreadful nights and mind games, and really they could go hand in hand here. With the mind games that come at night in particular, and just mind games in general. The nighttime can be our worst enemy, as I've mentioned here. Trying to get some shut eye from the mentally exhausting day, yet our minds seem to be working overtime. It's like, you look at people that have blue collar jobs that work their butts off, and they can get through the day, of course, with a coffee or an energy drink or a couple, but they come home and it's they still go about their day. I mean, you look at your parents. For most of us, at least myself, my father works in construction, his own company. He's been that for his whole life. And he still gets through the day, no nap required, and goes to bed at a reasonable hour, gets up early. But then, for me, even at the time when I was, I wasn't working, trying to find my way, didn't have much going on, I had so many big dreams, but no idea where to take the first step. I would be exhausted. I mean, it made no sense. Like I would do next to nothing in my day, and I would be exhausted every single day. I mean, I still get tired from time to time now, but at least I have a little bit more of a reason because my day is, I'm pretty much on my feet and going for the better part of the day, if not the whole day. And even then, when I was waking up at like 11 o'clock, or waking up at maybe 9 and taking a nap, and then, dragging myself to the gym, not doing too much, I'd be exhausted. And and the reason I'm saying this is because it's mentally exhausting trying to find your way, beating yourself up, finding or fighting the mental warfare every single day. That is brutal. And it's like, people don't get it. Like, oh, dude, you did nothing today. How are you tired? Like, how can you possibly be tired? It's like, you don't really think about it too much, but the battle that goes on within your head, I mean, that takes a lot out of you because it's every single day and it doesn't stop. From the second you hit the pillow, or excuse me, as soon as your head hits the pillow at night, or as soon as your eyes open in the morning, um, it's brutal. It's brutal, and it actually is more so than your head hitting the pillow and your eyes waking up in the morning. There was a point for a while, even happens every once in a while now. It's like you beat yourself up so much, you're so stressed out, it actually starts to translate into your dreams. Even in your dreams, it's like you start having these nightmares and things that are just negative. Like it's just everything's just negative around you. It feels like, and I don't mean to sound crazy here because I'm not. I know a few of you could probably relate to that, but it just takes over when your mind is so focused and stressed out on one thing like that. It's going to take over, and more so than just your waking hours, but even in the day, in the hours you're sleeping. It's crazy. It's crazy to think about, but that's the power our mind has over us. Um, but yeah, I mean, I had a bunch of notes here. Just we could barely keep our eyes open, but the mass of nerve tissue weighed about 3 pounds um, between our ears just does not want to shut down. Referring to our brain, our mind just does not want to shut down. Our bodies could just be broken, even if you do work a full-time job, 12, 14 hours a day, and then you work out maybe, and you're a family man, and you're going, or a woman, and you want to just pass out, but you lay down, get under the sheets, head hits the pillow, you close your eyes, and boom. Everything just starts racing. Things that aren't even relevant, or things that maybe are that may need addressing, but they're not urgent. It's just things your mind, it just comes to front of mind. And next thing you know, 30 minutes later, you're wide awake and you're just rolling around in bed trying to get some sleep. So you got to be up first thing the next morning. And it's like, dude, how much longer of this crap? And that's actually the next thing I had. Yeah, just rolling around in bed till like 2 a.m. It's brutal. It's like, then you wake up, you're exhausted the next day, like, oh, I got to get to bed earlier. I got to start getting to bed earlier. And then you never do, because the nighttime, especially during a phase like that, is the only time you really enjoy, because at least everybody else is inside. Maybe you go watch a movie, and it's not like it's midday and you're watching a movie. You have a glass of wine or a beer or something, and you're just hanging out, and you feel like you're normal because that's what everybody else is doing. Whereas during the day, when everybody else is at work and you're kind of twiddling your thumbs, again, I'm not saying that to judge anyone because I've been there, but it's a brutal feeling, and it's not fun. And then if you do the cycle long enough, it starts to feel like you reach what's called the point of no return, which in my eyes, especially if you're a God-fearing man and someone who has placed their full-fledged trust in Christ, there's no such thing. No such thing as anything, really, that's impossible or not doable for God, for Christ himself. So if you feel that way, just know that's literally the devil himself. I mean, he could just stamp it saying, hey, I'm Satan telling you that you've reached the point of no return, because it's just a lie, straight up a lie. But anyways, we've reached the 13-minute mark of just talking about the negatives, but now let's talk about the whole premise behind this episode and how we're going to combat this together and how we're going to allow God to shape us through it. So this is what I came up with yesterday. Well, rest assured, if you stand with Christ, there is most certainly good news. If there's anything I've learned throughout the duration of this time, it's that I've only grown to be more mature, enjoy my own company, appreciate the people I do have around me a whole lot more. I'm forced to rely heavier on Christ. I find myself longing to serve others more than I already do. And I've realized when I do find the right one, the one the Lord has created for me, I'll be even more prepared because I'm working on bettering myself every single day, as well as trying to learn something new every single day in an effort to become the best husband and father figure possible. I attribute the longing to be better to both my amazing parents and the good Lord for having me endure this time of nothingness. Now, to summarize that, because I don't want you to think I'm just reading this straight off the screen here and it doesn't hold any actual value to me. It just kind of came right to me yesterday. But the premise behind the episode, behind that paragraph right there of combating this feeling and being shaped during this time, and God willing, is that you will learn more about yourself. You will grow more. You will progress more. You will thrive in every part of your life. The growth will be so substantial. It'll be off the charts if you can endure during this time without losing sight of Christ, without losing the light at the end of the tunnel. And it's going to feel like you've lost that sight, but as long as you just keep holding on, love is in the will. That's what someone told me one time, a spiritual director of mine actually. Love is in the will, meaning you're not going to feel like serving every single day. You're not going to feel like opening the Bible or praying or just, even not in a spiritual sense, just going to work and working out, staying healthy and doing all these things, you're not going to feel like doing them all the time. Excuse me, but as long as you continue to do them, as long as you continue to get them done, that's all that matters. When you're, and I don't want to, what I was about to say, I don't want to give that away. It's actually the next and last point here, but it's just, you got to keep on keeping on, really. And don't think because you've lost the emotion that nothingness feeling is there. That means, okay, either God has given up on you or maybe you're not that extreme, and because it's not the truth. And maybe you just believe like you don't want to endure it any longer, or that you can't much longer. Just know you are learning so much more about yourself in this time than you would from any easy time, from any success or achievement or accolade. You will learn more from this by far. You will grow 100-fold in comparison to any reward or success that can be granted to you. Alex Hormozy actually made a really good point about this in an interview or a podcast. I'm not sure what it was, but he was saying if you had the ability to create almost like a superhuman essentially, or just say if you had the power to create someone. I mean, he's kind of relating to having children, honestly, but you wanted to make them patient. Would you just give them things as soon as they asked? If you wanted them to be able to be tough and embrace tough times, would you give them easy times? No. You see, so we want these things, is what he was getting at, essentially. We want these things, but we're not willing to wait for them. We're not willing to apply them to our own lives, because anybody with half a brain could say if they want their children to be able to grow up and be independent and strong, dependable men or women, you can't put them through easy times. You can't expect them to be patient and, all things of this nature just by existing. That's not possible. And how can we get to apply that to our own lives? We want to be these things. We want to obtain these virtues and be righteous and live, maybe just morally proper lives for now is where you're at. You got to put yourself through the storm. And right now, if you're living in it, that's your prayer being answered, especially if you're constantly praying for discipline and for breakthrough and courage and all these things. You're in it. You're living in the active prayer. And I say this with emphasis as if I'm just going to look at the side camera flip screen here talking to myself, because I'm the one who needs to hear this more than anyone at this point is what it feels like. And I remind myself every single day, I'm living in it. I'm praying for breakthrough, for all these big dreams and goals to come to fruition and to be more, disciplined and less dependent on the people around me at times. And I'm living in it. I'm literally living proof that I'm living in Christ, answering my prayers. I just want it to be over with, and I want the reward just because I don't want to endure the storm anymore. And that's not how it works. And I'd be a hypocrite if but not actually. Let me take that back, because as a human, we're going to feel that way. We're going to want the storm to be over, of course. But we also have to acknowledge that Christ is going to shape us during this time more than any other time. And that's very important to remind yourself of. Even if when you remind yourself, don't expect it to be like, oh, okay, I feel better now. It's not how it works. We're still human, but we have to hold on and hold on and draw close to these things. Oh my goodness, excuse me. But I want to wrap up with this here. There's some quick words of encouragement I remind myself of every day during this phase. Imagine the Lord in his glory before all the angels and saints in heaven, saying, "Look at my faithful child. Even after I have allowed the evil one to strip him or her of their joy and feeling, they still serve me willingly and faithfully each day." Now, how beautiful is that, right? Now, imagine the joy to come when the Lord restores that joyous feeling within you and you're gifted with an abundance of blessings. That, my friend, is what we need to hold on to draw near to, and never lose sight of. No matter how hard it gets, no matter how brutal we feel, nothing can take that away from us. It says in Scripture that nothing below above the heavens, nothing, no principality. I remember I had to read this actually at a service one time. Essentially saying nothing. There's nothing the world can do, nothing the evil one can do to separate us from the love of Christ. Nothing. Literally nothing. No storm you're in now, nothing. It's solely up to you. Okay? It is solely up to you. And the longer you hold on, I promise you the greater your reward will be. And just, in that time, you're going to grow exponentially. And the craziest part is you're not even going to remember it because it's just such a brutal time. You don't want to remember it, and you most likely won't. And then you look back saying, wow, I grew a lot because I'm living proof of that. I feel that way every day, and it's crazy. Truly crazy. But anyways, I'm going to wrap that up there, a little over the 20-minute mark. Thank you guys so much again, as always, for listening. I hope these videos are starting to become more relatable, more applicable to your own lives. And I look forward to hearing some feedback as well, because that's the only way these are going to get better. And I look forward to also expanding this whole podcast setup. Start having some people on here. I spoke to a few people about that. If you got this far, a few of you know exactly who you are. I look forward to that as well. That'll spice things up a bit. But anyways, thank you guys so much as always for listening. You're the best. I love you guys. And until next time, God bless.